This is Gemara Metziah, Daf Chav Dalid, and we're holding in the bottom of Chav Gimel Amid Beis as we discussed this first Mishnah, the Mishnah of different types of items as they relate to their simanim, what you announce, etc. So we're 4 lines from the Y lines, and we quote the sheet of Rav Shimon Elazar Aimer Vechulu. He said, you find on Perioi Kalim. The halacha is you don't have to announce it. So the question is, what exactly is going on over here? It says the Gemara, Maya Imperia, what is this? I'm Rav Yidam Shmuel. Kalim chadashim shleisavasanayin. New items that your eye is literally not satiated from. A brand new keli, you don't necessarily have the tviyas ayin yet. You're not accustomed to it yet. And therefore, you don't have to announce it. If someone finds it, he could keep it. Says the Gemara, tell me, what is the precise case in the last narrow line? If there's an actual siman on it, who cares if you're familiar with the item? It's a siman. It could be a brand new pair of shoes, but you have this particular mark on it. If you know there's something special about it, so it's a siman. Who cares how new the item is? And on the flip side, says the Gemara, what does it help that you know it well? What does that do for us? Lamaisa, there's no simin. So says the Gemara, we're talking about the last bu simin. So nafkamina, what's going on over here is laduri litzurba meirabana betviyas ayin. There's a special halacha that surba meirabana and young tamidi chachamim, you're able to return items to them based purely on their tviyas ayin, the fact that they could recognize it. And explains the Gemara Savasan ayin 3 lines to the bottom. If they recognize the item, Kim Lui Bigavei, he knows it for sure. Umehadrinan lei, and we return it to him. We return it to him based on the fact that he recognizes it, based on the fact that he sees what the item is. Therefore, you announce it. And if the one who comes forward, it's an item without a siman. But if the one who comes forward is a surmei rabbanan and he says he recognizes it, then we give it to him. But if he's not accustomed, he's not used to it, we wouldn't give it back to him. And the Gemara now says, what's the source of this whole din of giving back with tviyas ayin? It's last mili. 3 things. There are 3 things, say the Gemara, that a Talmud Chacham, that a Rav is allowed to be Mishana Milayu. We know the critical importance of emes, of saying things absolutely truthful. Says the Gemara, there are 3 things one is allowed to lie about. Number 1 is b'mesechta. Says Rashi, if someone asks if you know a certain mesechta, you're allowed to say, no, it's a form of anivos, of humility. Bepuraya, no, this does not mean Purim, although having a mention of Puraya, the day of Purim, Kemat, this is Shabbos is Daf, Purim is Sunday, is of course one of the beauties of the Daf. But what is Puraya? Rash says, Shimashta mitasecha yemru lav. If someone inquires about one's marital intimacy, form of tznius, he's allowed to say no. And as we turn over to Chavdalit Amid Aleph, says the Gemara, Ube Ush Pisa. And with regard to hospitality, as Rashi explains, that what? Shalu Alish Pisa, Yim Kibbalu Besever Panim Yavais. If you ask, oh, was it good? How were the accommodations by his house? You're allowed to say it was not. Why? Because you don't want many people to jump and harass this Rav to stay by him. And the Yakalu es mamanai, and he'll use up his money that he's busy hosting all these guests. Therefore, he's allowed to lie about that. Says the Gemara, my nafkamina. What is the nafkamina of these dinim of Shmuel? This is the litmus test. Can you return Aveda with mere tviyas ayin that they can recognize it? If you know about such a person, that he only changes his words, he only will deviate from the truth for these 3 things. Then Mahadrina, then if he says he recognized the item, we give it back to him. But if he deviates in other areas, then we will not give back the Aveda to him. Continues the Gemara 5 lines down. Agnev le kisa de kaspa. A silver cup was stolen from Marzucha Chasida Meushpiza, from an inn. What happened? Chazi alu barbe Rav. He saw a certain young Talmud Chacham. Demashi yodev v'nagiv b'glima. He saw someone who's washing his hand, and he dried it on the shirt of the chavre of his friend. Amar hainu hai deloich lei. I'm a minor the chavre. Who's this guy? You don't care about your friend's money. You're busy drawing your hands in his shirt. You're ruining his shirt. Amar marzuchas kafte v'oidi. So what happened? No, I skipped. Amar hainu hai deloich lei. I'm a minor the chavre. Amar. So Marzucha said, I knew this is the one that stole the cup. Because he doesn't care about his friend's money. Kavte, he tied him up, va'idi, and he admitted to the crime. Okay, let's just go back. I got confused in the lines of here. One more time. Omar, is this the guy? He admitted Kavte Vaidi for the fact that he didn't care about his friend's money. He was able to catch him, that he was the one that stole the item. Says Gemara Tanya. If it's a kili chadash, but one is accustomed to it, then you do have to announce it. This is basically the continuation of Shimon Elazar that we started with today, but just the flip side. What is such an item, says the Gemara? Needles and forks, or certain types of axes and string of axes, new items you don't recognize. Says the Brisa. All of these items that we said that one does not recognize, so if you find them one on their own, you find one axe, one item. You find them in twos, then chayiv lahachar is why, as we saw yesterday, the minyan, the number of items itself, could be a simin. Says the Gemara, my body, what are badi? Shuchis, branches of a tree. My karle badi, why are they called badi? Davar the talib amidi, saying that you hang on something. Bad karle is called a bad. Kiahud, it's not awesome like that which we found in a mission. Darminan awesome. Alei achad v'bad achad. As we saw, the willow branch of Shanarabah is one leaf upon one bad. So we see that when something is laying upon something else, we use the word bad. Back into the Brisa, we're in the middle of discussing. Someone saves something from a lion, a bear, a leopard, or a hyena. Zutal shalyam, if you save something from a flow of a river, mashalita shalnar, from the surge of a flooding river, hamaiti bisaratio palatio gedaila, reminiscent all the way back of Gemara and Shabbos, someone who finds something in a major public place, so any item that is found in a public place, you find something in Times Square, you let it keep him, because we assume that there is Yish, because when someone knows that he lost something in such an area that has so many people coming and going, he knows he's never going to get back the item. So that is going to be the scenario that will know this Yish, and therefore the finder will be allowed to keep it. Says the Gemara, let's pose a few series of kashas. Ki Kamer of Shimon Elazar. When did Rav Shimon Elazar say his din? B'Raiv Kinanim. Only the majority of the people are Gayim Avol B'Raiv Yisrael loy. But if the majority are Yidin, then you would have to announce it. You would not be allowed to keep it. Or maybe. Even majority Jews, he said you could keep it. Is this a debated point? This din that if something is lost in a public area that the finder could keep it, do the Rabbanan disagree or not? But so we have a whole long list figuring out what are the parameters of when Rav Shimon Elazar said something found, something lost in this public area, you could keep it. Is it only because there's a lot of goyim around, or maybe even if there's yidden? And even if there's a lot of yidden, but do the Rabbanan agree with Rav Shimon Elazar that something lost in such a public area that you're allowed to keep it? Or no, maybe because a lot of Yidden, you have to announce it. Is that tough because it's a Rav? What if it's Rav Kinanim? Do we paskin like him or not? So says the Gemara after all these shaylos tashema. On the last narrow line, Amoitzi Mois, Bebatik and Isiyais. You found money in a shul, Batim Ejashais, on a base of Magic, B'chol Magsham, Siyusham, Hareyelu Shaloim. They found the Sashaben. So what do we see? We see clearly that even this Roiv Yidin, we assume that there's Yish and you're allowed to keep it. Man Shamas Leid also Basal Ruba, says the Gemara, and this Brisa said Roiv. Shimon Elazar, so Shmas Minafilu Brav Yisrael Nami, even a Roiv of Jews, you're allowed to keep the item if it's lost in such a public area. Says the Gemara, Acham Mayeskina no Raya, Bimifuzarin. We're dealing with a case where the coins are scattered, so there's no simon. And that's why you're allowed to keep it, regardless of the fact that it's a Roiv Yisrael. But Lamaisa, the money is scattered, so there's no simon to announce it in the first place. Says the Gemara, 1 second, even Mifuzarin. If they're scattered, why are we talking about a place where a lot of people are there? Meaning, if the whole reason why you're allowed to keep it is because the money is scattered, then it has nothing to do with the fact that you're in a base medrash. So why did the Brisa say such a case? 5 lines into the wide line, says the Gemara, Bitzrurin. Really, we're talking about bundle of coins which have a simin. And it's still no raya. Because the fact that it said it's a shul or a base medrash, says the Gemara, we could simply be talking about a shul, not a shul, but a church of the Goyim. But to Josh's Michael and Meimar, what does it mean a base medrash though? Says Gemara, but the Josh is done, but the Yasubu Kananim. Yes, it's our shul, our base medrash, but the Goyim are the guards. He says, now if you can explain like this, I'll tell you the same, but can you see us not be done? Because we can on him that the Goyim are guards, therefore we don't have any raya to the Shaila of Rav Shimon Elazar. So Gemara tries again to Hashema, says the Brisa, it depends what the Rav is. So suggests the Gemara, man shams like damar azina basa Rav Shimon Elazar, shmas mina kikum Shimon Elazar, but Rav Kinanim. It sounds like it's only when it's Rav Goyim that's when you're allowed to keep it. But Avol Rav Yisrael, says the Gemara again, no raya. 5 lines from the bottom of the Amud of Chavdal Amud Halif. Ha mani Rabbanani, I'll tell you it's a Rabbanan. Tiv Shemina. But if it's the Rabbanan, we can at least answer up one of the shaylas that it sounds like the Rabbanan are masking be'etzim to Rav Shimon Elazar just in the case of Rav Goyim. But Rav Kananim says, Rav Shimon Elazar. What's the case? This Bryce is talking about a case of a buried object. Says the Gemara, if it's a buried object, so why does the guy who finds it get to take it? It's buried in the ground. Of course he should have to announce it. If it's covered over a kli in the garbage, don't touch it. Because the guy had clearly put it there. Megula noitila machris. Answers the Gemara, garbage is not usually cleared out. So they decided to clear it out. So that's the reason why, since it's not normally cleared out, but now they decided to clear it out. That is the reason that someone who sees such an object, he knows he's never going to get it back, because once the owner is going to clear out the garbage, he knows all hope is lost. And that's the case of Shimon Elazar says, only if it's Rav Yisraelim would you announce it. But if not, you would not. If you look at the bottom Rashi, before we turn over the page, they decided to clear it out. Miyad, therefore that's the reason why you're taking. Because if he knew it was going to be cleared out, then it's like he just threw away the item because he knew it was going to be cleared out. We turn over to Chavdal Adam Abay, says our second teretz. Didn't say you actually keep it, just said you don't have to announce it. And the reason is, and therefore it could fit even with the shita of the Rabbanan, and we're not talking about Tamun, and there's no raya that they're moided by Rav Kananim, because it doesn't say that you can keep it, it just says you don't have to announce it, and rather, V'yaniach, back to the Gemara, v'yesi Yisrael v'yav v'leisimana v'shakil. So rather leave it on the side, and if someone comes and gives a siman, great. If not, not. So we're back to our original question of Rav Shimon Elazar. When is this din of Rav Shimon Elazar that something found in a public place allowed to be kept? Yidin Yisrael, Yidin Goyim, Roiv, not Roiv. The Chachamim argue or not. So Tashema continues the Gemara 3 lines down. Dam Ravas. Matzah chavis yayin beer shiruba kinan fell in the barrel of wine in the city. That's majority goyim. Muteres misha Metziah. You're allowed to keep it due to the halachais of Metziah. But vasura bahana. You're not allowed to get any benefit from that wine. Then you're allowed to drink it. If Yisrael gives a simin, then the one who finds it is allowed to drink it. Says the Gemara Kiman. Who does this price go like? Rav Shimon Elazar, who goes with the fact that there's a lot of people over there, therefore you would not have to return it. But if it's a majority of a Yidin, seemingly Rav Shimon Elazar would not allow you to keep it. Says the Gemara, Rav Asi, you said over this thing about finding the barrel of wine, it holds like Rav Shimon Elazar only in one case, but not in both. If you can't get any benefit from it, what does it mean that you're allowed to keep the item? You can't get any benefit from it. Amar Rav Ashi, that you could use it for the container. The wine is going to be usher, but you can spill the contents and you utilize the barrel itself. So as of yet, we have not been able to paishate the shayla of Rav Shimon ben Elazar. We're at the 2 dots, about 13 lines down, and the Gemara continues with a story, which eventually will end in a raya. Ahu Gavra. There was a guy, Dashach Araba Zuzi Ditsairi Bisadina. He found 4 coins tied up in a cloth, Vishadi ben Harabiran, that they're in the Biran River. Also, the Kamei Rav Yehuda Amar Leizalach is going out. But he said, 1 second, Vazuta Shal Yamu. This is a case of Vazuta Shal Yam that took away the coins, which we learned in the Bryce. You're allowed to keep it. Says the Gemara, no. Shiny Nar Biran. Why? Kivan Dimitkal Loi Miyayish. Because the Nar Biran, there are obstacles. So when something is flowing down the river, the guy who lost the thinks, it's going to get caught on a rack, and maybe I'll get it back. And therefore, he's not Miyayish. But says Gemara, 1 second. Varuba Kinanim Ninu. But most people in this area are Kinanim. Shema Mina Ein Alocha Ki Rav Shimon Elazar Afilu Beroiv Kinanim. That we see that you do not keep the item. Even Roiv Kinanim, you still have to announce it. Says the Gemara, no raya shiny nabri on the Yisrael sachrulei, the Yisrael karulei, because the Yidden are the ones that make the dams, the Yidden are the ones that dig in it, and therefore given the Yisrael sachrulei, imer me Yisrael nafa, we can assume it fell from a Yid. Given the Yisrael karu, they digulei, loy miyayish. That's why the owner is not miyayish, but this would not necessarily be a raya to the larger shayla of Rav Shimon ben Elazar. Continues the Gemara, Rav Yehuda Avi Shakil. Vazal Basrei Demar Shmuel was walking behind Shmuel. Beshuk on the Shok Tevei Daisei of Daisa store, cereal. Amrle Matzah Kananakimau. And he said to Shmuel, what if here, right here in this area, we find the wallet? What's the thing? Amrle Shmuel responds, inshallah, you can keep it. What if he comes and gives a simin? Amrle Chayav Lachros, you have to announce it. Says the Gemara, Tarti. Something here doesn't make sense. On one hand, you said I lost something, I can keep it. If I find something I can keep it. On the other hand, you tell me I have to announce it. You find something in a public area, you're allowed to keep it. If someone gives you a simin, above the letter of the law, you should return it. Story Davud Shmuel. What did he find? He found chamayrim. He found donkeys. He found the donkeys in the desert. And he returned them. After 12 months elapsed, he returned them. He didn't have to, but there's a concept of lefnim mishur sadin to return such an item. So the Gemara is being paisha that even though ba'atzim inherently you could keep the item, Shmuel's teaching us, but there is above the letter of the law to return it. Another story, 3 lines from the white lines. Rav Avishag of Azal Basrei Rav Nachman. Rava is walking behind Rav Nachman B'Shuka on a marketplace. The Gildi of Gildi workers, leather workers. V'amrile B'Shuka de Rabbanan. Some say it wasn't leather workers, it was a shuk of Rabbanim. Amrle, Motkanani came out. What if I find the wall? Amrle, Harishli can keep it. Why is having us about Simin Mao? Amrle, Harishli Shalom, you still can keep it. The guy's screaming that he has a simin. How you got to keep the item on the first white line? Says the Gemara, it's like someone screaming his house fell down. He's screaming that his boat sank. But he already was miyayish, and therefore he can protest all he wants, but the one who finds it is allowed to keep it. And we continue with the Gemara teaching us, Aho diyai, there was a diyai, a vulture. Tishakel bisra, they used to take meat, beshuka v'shade b'sinaisa, and he would throw it between the sinaisa and the bar Miriam, the trees of bar Miriam. Abaye said, Zil shekol and avshach, go take the meat that this bird dropped in your backyard. Says the Gemara, 1 second, Varubi Yisrael nenu. Shmas mina lachgar Shimon Elazar, they could keep the item afilu b'roiv Yisrael. Says Mar no raya. It's like an overflow of the river. Says Mar, 1 second. Rav. Okay, you didn't prove our shayla, but what about the fact that Rav taught us Basar and Salman Ayin also? If you see where it comes from, this is a big cloud that Basar and Salman Ayin is not forbidden in all cases. Only if you don't know where the item came from. If a meat just appears from nowhere, okay, there's no chesamas, there's no seals, there's no action, there's no anything. But if you were to know where it came from, then it would be mutter. We continue 5 lines down into the white lines, the 2 dots of Chanina Matzah Gdi Shacha Bein Tvar Letzipari. Rav Chanina found a shechted goat between Tvar and Tzipari v'tiru alai, and he allowed them to eat this gedi. Amar Ravami said, Ravami etiruhu loy mishum Metziah. Rav Shimon Elazar, like the opinion of Rav Shimon Elazar, a public place, you ought to keep it. But mishum shchita, Rav Chananya b'noi Shavisek Lili. With regard to the kashrus, he said he could eat it like Rav Chananya, Titania. Harish Abdullah Gediyov. If someone lost his kid, his Gediyim, V'tarnegaylim, his chickens, and he went and he found them slaughtered, Rav Yehuda Iser. Rav Yehuda says it's also to be eaten because they might not have been shechted properly. Rav Chanina b'nai Shav Yisek Lili Matir says they're allowed to be eaten. Amar Rabbi, near and Divi Rav Yehuda, Kishamasan be'ashba. The case of Rav Yehuda is when it's found in the garbage, where they would usually just throw away the different meat of the items that were not shechted properly. But for Divi Rav Chananya b'nai Shav Yisek Lili, when they're found in a house. So from here concludes the Gemara, must be Ruby Yisrael. You can only use good shchita if it's Rav Yidin. So what can we prove? Shmas mina, Lakum Shimon Elazar Rav Yisrael. Oh my Rava, I'm sorry, still no Raya. Really was Rav Kenanim. But Rav Tabachi Yisrael, the butchers were Yidin, so we still have no Raya. Rami Ashche Parki Od Shchutos Ben Tvar L'Tzipayre. Also lekamei to Rav Asi V'amar lekamei to Rav Yechlan V'amar le Bein Midrasha V'amar le Zil Shekol Nafshach. Go take it for yourself. Rav Yitzchak Nafka Avshach Kibura Da'azli Bei Azluye. He found a string that the trappers used to make nets. Go take it for yourself. And therefore, the Gemara does not have an explicit raya how we paskin. However, the Mefarshim, the Rishonim come along and they say that from these final stories we could say that even Rav Yisrael, we do pass like Rav Shimon Elazar, as in these cases we see Areil Shalai, you're allowed to keep it even though it seemingly was Rav Yisraelim, that in a public place, if we assume the owner was Miyayish, then the one who finds it would, yes, be allowed to keep it.